Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Whether you're an elementary or secondary music teacher, sometimes it can feel like there's a misunderstanding of what you do from the secondary teachers to elementary and the elementary music teachers to secondary levels. In this episode, I brought on Eric Young to talk about how to connect elementary music to secondary music and why it's important for students to have a seamless transition between what happens in their elementary music program to secondary. Eric talks also about his love in this episode for Orff Schulwerk and how it easily transfers to what he does in secondary music, which I love because I told him in this episode that sometimes it feels like Orff is just for elementary music teachers, but it definitely is not. And also he talks about what technology he's used with his students and why he's chosen to use it and how not to get stuck when it comes to technology and how you can easily add new things or figure out what works with your students. Eric has been both an elementary and secondary music teacher, so he understands both worlds. This conversation will hopefully help you bridge the gap in a way between what happens in elementary and secondary music and how teachers of both of these worlds can talk to and help each other out. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am joined by Eric Young, and I'm so excited to have him because before we started recording, I told him that the conversation we're going to have today, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but elementary to secondary music is something we have not discussed on the podcast a lot. So I'm so excited to have him on and to help elementary music teachers with how to help your students with transitioning to secondary music. So before we get into all the things, Eric, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story of becoming a music teacher, what you're doing now, and all of those things.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm a huge podcast fan, so this is like bucket list today. So I'm very excited to be here. I was a clarinet major in undergrad and thought I was going to be a high school band director until I hit student teaching and then fell in love with elementary school. I student taught at a K-2 primary school, and it was just the most magical thing I'd ever done. So I did that for 12 years. And then I had the opportunity to move into full-time consultant work for a couple of years. I worked with Lynn, Kleiner and Music Rhapsody and everything early childhood. I was the person I managed one of the websites. I did content development. I did some teacher training with Lynn, and then through that had the opportunity to travel to China and teach early childhood music in 3 locations over China, which was pretty interesting. In the mix of that, I took on an adjuncting position at Radford University, which is where I did my undergrad. And I teach a music technology course for generally freshmen and sophomores. Then returned to the classroom and returned to the classroom, taught elementary band for 4th and 5th grade and K-3 general music. And then finally took a job closer to home back in the system that I first started in, was the itinerant music teacher. I did pre-K-5. And then right before COVID hit, they changed our instructional hours. And so we went from seeing kiddos twice a week for a half hour, which was great, to now it was moved to once a week for 45 minutes. And then, so my position was lost. So fortunately, I'm still in the system, but now I'm teaching middle school band, choir, guitar, and general music. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah. You've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
been it's been
Yeah.
an interesting kind of job. I never thought I'd leave teaching, and then I
Yep.
left, and then realized I liked the consultant piece, but I really wanted to be back in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now in my life. I'm not in the classroom, but I'm doing a lot of mentorship and, I'm running my business. But I told my husband that the other day, I miss being in the classroom. So you never know where your journey is going to take you. But
Exactly.
yeah, I've talked to a lot of even music ed majors, and you working with college students, I probably had the same conversation is you never know with your music education degree what's going to happen, what doors are going to happen that you totally didn't
Exactly.
expect. Like, it's such, you just think you're going to graduate and just being a music teacher.
Uh-huh.
So, but I think that's cool because as a musician and music educator, there's so many different paths you can take. And so I love hearing your story. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's I did distinctly remember in undergrad, one of the methods classes, they said,
Hmm.
you will become the church choir director in your area, and here is me as a clarinet major. I'm like, I will
Yeah.
no. And then sure
Yeah.
enough, about 8 years later, they needed somebody at the local church to get them to Easter.
Oh gosh.
And so that 6-week position turned into 4 years, and
Oh wow.
yeah, and so and I just always remember the guy that came in and talked and saying, "You will become," and I said, "No, never." And then sure
Yep.
enough, there it
Yep.
was.
Yes. I remember I think yeah, it was my secondary methods instructor, but he said, you never know, you might be asked to be the string instructor. And I'm
Mm.
like, that methods class alone, string methods, because I'm also a clarinet player and I'm a
Yeah.
pianist, was like dying cats. I
Oh
tried my
yeah.
best, but it was like, I cannot. How do people do this? How do people play a string instrument? So he like put the fear of God in me when I was like so stressed out. That would be the only position open, was either an orchestra director or just a small strings instructor, and I was like, oh my, they don't want me teaching that instrument. It's so scary. Oh, I love hearing your story. And so we touched on this a little bit before when we were just having a conversation before I pushed record about you. I told you my story of being in elementary school and a middle school, well, the middle school band director brought in some of the instruments to show us before we moved on to middle school. And it was really cool seeing the instruments, getting to hold them and play them, before COVID. Of course, this was way years and years ago, but being able to experience the instruments and not just like learning about them, but saying, oh, that's what that is, or that's what that sounds like, or oh, getting to hold it. And that's why I chose clarinet. And then I actually think I remember saying I want to play tuba, and the director was like, no, they just told me straight up no. And so I don't know. But anyways, clarinet was decided for me, or I decided, I can't remember now. But anyways, I told you that I think that's really cool when there's a connection between elementary music teachers and secondary teachers being able to collaborate like that and being able to show the elementary students, especially fifth graders or sixth graders, the instruments so they can spark that interest. And you said you're the person that gets to do that. And so I kind
that,
of
that
want you to
that's part of my job.
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us all the things about that. How do you show the different elementary schools the instruments? How do you get kids excited about band or orchestra? And then we're going to talk about forming those connections between elementary and secondary music. So
Mhm.
just tell us all the things, Eric.
Yeah, so it's the I was very sad to initially move to middle school. It was something to do. I'd never taught middle school
Mhm.
before, but the silver lining was that the rising sixth graders, I taught half of them in the elementary school, so that was a neat process coming. So starting in a brand new building, brand new grade level, I already knew a bunch of the kids.
Mhm.
And a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching this year, I have a sixth grade general music class and sixth grade band. So I have lots of those kids that I had last year. So
Mhm.
that's been pretty neat. But when I was in the elementary classroom, my the instruments were always there in the classroom. I really didn't keep them in a case. I had them on my my gigging stands. I have my all my woodwinds set up, and when we would be improvising, and stuff, instead of just, just for me, like, maybe I'm improvising on the recorder over top, but I would take that and really, oh, look, I'm going to play the flute over top of this. And, oh, this sounds lower. Why does this sound lower? So the kiddos were really kind of entrenched, and having some knowledge of an instrument aside from just being a picture. So this year kind of recruiting efforts were it's been a little strange.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I have the relationship with the elementary teachers in the county because we're friends outside of work. And
Yeah.
so I was, able to go down. I kind of spent the entire day. I took everything I could fit in my car, from your standard band instruments to, oh, look, here's a soprano sax because I got one, and here's an alto flute, and we talking about those things. And kiddos are always fun because their eyes get really big, and you can really see the kiddos that are ready to start learning an instrument, because you always hear that gasp when they hear something they love. Just the the kind of the clutching of the pearls, or something like that. And there was some kiddos that you hear that instrument and you're like, that is what I want to do. And so we talked about the kiddos that there's definitely instruments I could recommend for them, but if there's one that is just singing to your heart right now, let's do it. Even that, we don't have a string program here, and one of the kiddos says, I play violin, but the string program, they're not involved with anymore. Can I play yes, bring the violin to the band class and we're gonna make it work.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because I think that sometimes secondary ensembles get so like, okay, this is what your traditional band looks like. My middle school, we're small. It's 350 kiddos, 6 through 8. So it's not big. My goal for them is really, I want them to keep making music somehow, whether it's at school, would loving for them to be in the ensemble classes, or taking, I teach guitar, not well, but I teach guitar. And we're doing, the theater teacher and I, we're collabing for a musical. This is the first musical that this middle school has ever done. So we're really excited just to find opportunities. And, even with this musical, we're auditions tomorrow. We have kids that have, like, the sign up list is massive. We were really surprised, with being on this weird hybrid schedule, and kiddos are ready to be involved in things again. So it's really exciting to find kiddos, that opportunity to be involved in things.
That's encouraging. Yeah. Kids are craving music right now.
Yes.
They, and I've talked to music teachers about this so many times who I work with there, who are like, well, only one kid showed up to my Zoom call or whatever it might be. And I said, but they're missing you. They're missing music. They're craving that interaction, that, that piece that they're just missing. And so, that's awesome that you have.
That's even some days with right now, my 7th grade choir, they are all online, and they have been online now since before Christmas. So most of them, I haven't seen them. And so our first day I was going to see most of them back, we had a snow day.
Oh gosh.
I came in late on Monday, so I didn't get to see them. So they were online again. And so just, and really the conversation, I had my plan. We were going to sing tonal patterns and rhythm patterns. I had my all like very proper music teacher plan, which just delved into like they started, asking about the musical. And then one of the kiddos said, I don't know if my parents know that it's safe. And so we talked about, what safe is and what we're doing to care about them. And to know, whatever, they want to do, we're here for them at school. And, we've got things in place, and we care about you. That's the one like big difference. Like I've noticed moving from elementary to middle, where, I would, previously I would see kids, it was, that revolving door that can happen in the music room, where I have kiddos, every day. I see them for longer periods of time. And
Yeah.
so that's been easy. And, I've been here half a year now. And so kiddos are really starting to kind of open up and, find some place to talk to. I've got, you've got those, I was one of those kids in high school. I was always looking for the band room. That's, I never visited my locker. My locker was in the band room.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple kiddos that, anytime they have some free time, they want to be down here, and they just want to try stuff and see what it sounds like. And, that's, that to me is more better, which is a terrible form of English.
I know what you mean. I know. Hey,
it's,
what?
It's better than, okay, all right, we're going to sit in band class in our seats, and you've only ever got to experience the trumpet. With me as like a beginning instrumental player, I started learning the clarinet, the next year. My brother is a year younger than me, started to learn the flute. So I would grab the flute when he was done. And that's what I loved, the trying of all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see, I kind of just sit back and watch. It's really two boys that come down all the time. I just watch them, and it's like, when you put the kiddos on the barred instruments in kindergarten for the first time, and their eyes light up, and they are just, that musical babble that my middle schoolers are doing that with just different stuff. Like I had a trumpet player. He's like, "What's that baritone over there?" And so I was like, we got a clean mouthpiece, and no one's playing that instrument this year. Let's check it out. And so, it's pretty neat. I didn't think I would enjoy middle school, but it's been good so far.
Good. Yeah. It's like fear of the unknown almost,
Yes,
something
exactly.
you've never done. Cause I know I've never taught middle school, but like same thing. It would be like, this is new.
Yeah.
So when it comes to helping kids transition from elementary to secondary music, how do you help them, or what advice do you have around that? Like when you first see the kids in middle school, or when you're talking to elementary music students who are interested in joining, band, for example, what ways do you help teachers prepare them, and you help students to prepare for that transition?
My background is in Orff Schulwerk. So, I think why I love that process so much is that kids get to explore and make music without barriers. And so, that's always the first thing, having an elementary program that, is having kids sing, say, dance, and play. I'm thinking of the best elementary teachers I know. And I fortunately in the county here, I work with really some top-notch educators. And it's not so much that they're preparing them, that to go on to secondary music, but they're giving them the confidence to continue to make music and experiences that they want more. And then I think it starts from the secondary people realizing that as elementary teachers, we teach a lot of stuff, and we're really good at teaching a lot of this, a lot of stuff, because sometimes I hear from secondary, oh, they can't read. Well, they can read. They can read music. You are just maybe not using a system that kiddos are accustomed to.
Yeah.
And, is the system that you're using the best thing to make kids successful? So that's kind of been interesting this year, really looking at, okay, this is how I want to reach kids, and what's the best way to make that bridge. I think being an elementary teacher for so long, my band class, we sing a lot. It's very, we're singing tunes and bass lines, tonal patterns and rhythm patterns, very kind of band meets Orff Schulwerk meets music learning theory is this weird kind of cross section right now.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then building relationships. I think I stayed in band so long because I built relationships with other kiddos, with the band director, and so the one thing, because of our COVID restrictions was, we had a essentially an instrument petting zoo, which was really, look, I have brought 15 instruments. I want to show you what you can play in a middle school.
Yeah.
And I want you to be a part of our choir program. And this is how you can get involved. And so that, the future is to keep, that building that relationship is having after school opportunities at the elementary school. That the secondary person does, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, the elementary person needs to go and do this. No, that elementary person is teaching 500-600. Friends in Northern Virginia that teach 1,200 students in their rotation. So really to build a program, instead of starting in middle school, which is 6th grade here, it needs to start before that. You need to have some kind of percussion ensemble.
Yeah.
You need to have, a community sing, a pyramid concert, and honors choirs, things like that. But the secondary person needs to be involved at the elementary, and that's going to concerts and being visible and being part of the community, instead of just like, all right, I'm going to wait for everyone to come to me. No, you need kiddos to feel like they're a part of something, especially entering this awkward, weird stage of middle school where their voices are all squeaky. And so that's been really, really important, is that relationship piece. And so it was interesting. I was 2 weeks ago, I went down and did my here's all the instrument spiel.
Yeah.
And it was neat seeing all of the kiddos, because again, I taught half of them the year before. So getting to see them again, and being able to bring the stuff.
Yeah.
Which was kind of neat.
That's so great. I love that you said that as a middle school music teacher, making yourself, known at their concerts and showing up to their events. And I think that's huge, because like you said, it shouldn't just be the first day of school where these kids that are coming into your band or choir program, or even a general music class, who are just seeing you for the first time, but they're like, oh, I saw him at my concert last year, or whatever it might be. But also making a point, this is something I did want to ask you about, is making a point as a middle school music teacher to get to know the elementary music teachers in your district, because like you said, there's always going to be more elementary music teachers than there are middle school music teachers. But what are ways that, you can connect with elementary music teachers when there's so many of them? How do you, during a COVID school year, I guess, but also during a regular school year, what are ways that can happen naturally?
Well, I think there's, I think professional development opportunities and having everybody involved in those things. Because, sometimes I see the elementary teachers, in the county that are working, in different workshops that I've done, they are so involved in learning new things and trying to bring music to kiddos, instead of just developing executive skills on the trumpet. And so really looking at those ways, and and the Orff Schulwerk teacher, I mean, you have to experience them. You have to feel, instead of telling kids, all right, we're going to sing. Well, here's how we're going to do it. Here's the building blocks to do that, is, really looking at, instead of just dismissing what an elementary teacher does as, oh, they're just playing. No, Carl Orff talks about, about child's play, mastering the art of child's play. And I mean, it's really neat. I like to think that I'm hopefully continuing that in an ensemble setting, instead of, all right, we're going to come down and sit in our chair and play line 6 of the, the lesson book, but, keeping them being creative and wanting to learn. I really have seen that elementary teachers are always wanting their kiddos to do wonderful and great things, and sometimes I see reluctance from secondary teachers, and it becomes somewhat dismissive sometimes of the important work that elementary teachers do. And the craft of teaching elementary schools. I can tell you, it is way easier to teach sixth grade beginning band than 4-year-olds. It's it's just the, trying to engage them. I know it's a different skill, but the, that early childhood piece, I always think secondaries could learn a lot from watching, a baby sing for the first time and vocalize, and what you can do to, help a baby develop, their singing. I remember watching Lynn Kleiner teach, and she had one of those little pop-up clowns.
Yeah.
And she was singing, and the clown would pop up, and then waiting for the baby to vocalize. So, you've got that waiting time. And then finally someone, that they vocalize. And I remember her saying that, that muscle, sometimes, when the kiddos are, making loud, they're like, shh, be quiet. And then all of a sudden they start to speak, and that's when we start giving praise. So it's, it's knowing that stuff, and then heading into, ensemble teaching and things like that. I think it's made me a better teacher. I think it's made me aware developmentally of what's going on a little bit better. Yeah. It's made me feel very prepared, and I didn't think I was going to be prepared. But
I think secondary music teachers understanding what elementary music teachers do, and elementary music teachers on the flip side need to understand what secondary music teachers do, because like you said, there's a lot to be learned from each other. It shouldn't be this, we're just the group of elementary music teachers and we're just the group of secondary. There should be like communication going on, and the same, like you said, attending some of the concerts when you can, but like in person. But elementary music teachers, same. Go to some of your kiddos who have moved on to middle school, go watch some of their concerts too, and encourage them and say, hey, you know what? Like, I started you in music and now you're doing this, but I'm still here to support you. I think all of those little nuances are huge. And I think you having the experience as an elementary music teacher, now as a middle school teacher, is huge, especially like you said, the Orff Schulwerk training and background that you are a part of. Definitely, I can see that being a huge part of what happens in a secondary music ensemble or class. It's not just elementary music, I know that's where Orff is associated with, but definitely those skills can definitely be transferred. And I think that, what ways have you incorporated Orff Schulwerk into your secondary music? And then what do you love about Orff Schulwerk, and why is that like a driving force behind what you do?
Oh, Orff Schulwerk, just the, when you start teaching, and then you're like, oh gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then someone says, hey, there's this workshop on the weekend. And I went to that first workshop, and then I was hooked, and then had some really wonderful mentor teachers saying, there's this training that you can take in the summer, and they're like, I think I found my people. It's kind of what I in undergrad, you kind of you get kind of the the buffet of music methods, and you don't really get to, I think, understand deeply about what each method is about. And so I guess it was my 4th year of teaching. I did level 1 at Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina, with the incomparable Mary Beth Yoder White. If y'all don't know Mary Beth, she's just a wonderful choral clinician and Orff Schulwerk educator. But it changed the way I looked at music, and it was stuff that I felt kind of in my core, that this is how we should teach music. And I was like, it's here, it's all together. It's got everything that I thought music should be, with moving and singing and playing. And it got me very excited. I had really intended just to ever take level 1, dust it off and go on with my life. And then and then the next 3 summers I did levels, and then I've gone then and done master classes, and
Awesome.
It's been exciting. So in my band class right now, we're playing an ostinato drone, and then improvising on So like the other day we did some improvisation on Mi Re Do in concert B flat.
Mm.
And then having some instruments play an ostinato, whether they're in essence playing a drone, or they're playing the percussion and stuff are playing some ostinati. We're playing a lot by ear first. Which has been interesting. The days that I think I do a better job teaching and the kids get more out, we're out of the lesson book a little bit more. Really, just we're kind of playing with tone a little bit. It's almost like that babble on the tone bar instruments, and playing in pentatonic. That playfulness can still be there. In an ensemble setting, and so it's been interesting to kind of play with that kind of that concept, and there's really not much like as far as like material out there. We're like, here's what Orff Schulwerk looks like in a band setting,
Right.
And so like I've kind of been leaning on music learning theory a lot, doing lots of tonal patterns and rhythm patterns, and then the more I kind of dip my toe into music learning theory, there's so many crossovers with Orff Schulwerk. Yeah. There's a band method book somewhere in my head that at some point I just need to sit down and like, okay, this is what it looks like, and this is how you can do it.
I think that would be so needed.
Yeah, it just there's really what I find a lot of like the beginning band method books, and there's some that are very good. They're all very much, it's the same thing. The one that's a little bit different is the Jump Right In series. It's a music learning theory based book. It is probably closest to what if I had got to choose the book that my kiddos were doing this year. That would be the book that I would have chose. Because you're singing and chanting, and you're getting all these executive skills first before looking and playing that G on the clarinet, and then having to decode first, even though that's not how we learn language. It's sometimes instrument playing we get it backwards. We get really caught up on the note reading and the staff, and if you look at it as language development, it's going to take time. But if you can remove that barrier of having kids to have to decode in order to play their instrument, I think then you're onto something. Yeah. And I watch recorder teachers, the best recorder teachers, that they do that in their Orff Schulwerk training. They all this stuff before the music reading happens. Yeah, sometimes I think that sometimes the secondary directors, we get into the music reading way too quick, and then that's the end all be all is we must read. Right. It will come. It might take a little longer to get there, but the result at the end is going to be better. And that's my choir class, doing these tonal patterns. And listening to different tonalities and things like that. When we're singing, they're moving when they're singing. They kind of jokingly walk in the door. We are in major tonality. When you hear do is the resting tone, you're in major tonality. And it's interesting, even when we're virtual, they will sing that back to me, because it's part of my script that when we're doing the tonal patterns and things. So I know that we're planting those seeds, so they're going to be ready for sight reading skills. Instead of jumping into sight reading factory and kind of, all right, here you go, let's practice it. It's kind of like pushing buttons on the clarinet, instead of you're really not developing that oleation skill.
Oh, good grief. So I am, started piano lessons when I was 6. And so when I started reading music, because, the method books do all that. And then so when I got into band in 6th grade, reading music was easy, because then I was just reading treble clef as a clarinet player. But then I can distinctly remember some of the middle school band students I was in band with struggling with reading music. Like it sort of is like learning a foreign language.
It is.
You're just like, you want me to what? Like, how do I read these like circles on a line?
Yeah.
And so I love that you said that because I think it's true. When I got trained in Orff, it was the same thing. It was like, attend this workshop that was in my district. And I'm like, I knew about Orff, like you said, and
Mm-hmm.
elementary music methods, but it was like, I never had like experienced it except for a couple college classes and things. But getting in there and like observing it, I remember at first being like, what's happening in here?
Uh-huh.
Teachers are dancing around the room and all these instruments are laid out everywhere. And I'm going, what's happening? And
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah, continuing on with Orff, once I took Orff, I realized same thing. The pianist in me was like, kids need to read to learn music. Learn to read music, excuse me. They need to learn to read music. That's the foundation. Sit down, read music. When we're playing any instrument in the classroom, any melodic instrument, whether it's recorder, xylophone, blah, 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 blah. But then when I took Orff, it kind of changed my mindset. Like,
Mm,
it's okay for them to experience it first,
yeah.
then you can slowly, like you said, build upon that, and then they can read notes. And same thing with the recorder. It changed my approach to teaching recorder. It wasn't
Yeah.
just here's the lines and spaces. We're gonna learn G today, or whatever the note was, and we're gonna learn to read it. Here it is on the staff. And yes, of course, reading music is important,
Yeah.
but experiencing it is really important as well. And there's so many different learning styles that of kiddos that come into your classroom, and they're all going to be learning different ways. And so
Yep.
I think reaching those different learning styles is super important as well. So I love that you touched
Absolutely.
on that, especially as a band and choir director, that teaching kids to learn music is important, but it's not like the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you touched on that. And yeah, because it's a different perspective than a lot of teachers. And there's so many different methods and they do kind of
Yeah.
cross over into each other. I learned that too as I started learning about different ones. And
Yeah.
and there's good about all of them. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of finding like what you're comfortable with, and rolling with it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I love that when you are teaching kids in band or choir. So, how do you feel like the reading music part kind of comes more naturally to them if you just start with them experiencing music
Yeah.
first?
I mean, because they're instead of just merely decoding, it's like in reading, we got very hung up for a long time just on fluency, which is really just decoding,
Mm-hmm.
instead of the comprehension and meaning making. I kind of feel like it's the same thing with music reading. If we are just decoding and teaching executive skills, we're really not teaching enough meaning making. Now, our high aptitude kids are always going to get it. They're going to like, oh, that's what this is. They're going to pick it up right away. But the kiddos that are going to take longer to process those things, if you can give them, the comprehension of, okay, all right, I have played all of this stuff. I have played hot cross buns, 8,000 times on my instrument, and I can play it. In the key of B flat. I can play it in the key of E flat, and playing things like that. That was really interesting with the kiddos was playing hot cross buns, the beginning recorder and beginning band national anthem, and then look, we can start on different notes and play, and we can move where do is. Yeah, and so like and that's also, I use lots of solfege in my band class, and we talk lots about resting tone um and things like that. Instead of saying, instead of being like, all right, here's B flat,
Mm-hmm.
this is B flat do on your flute, or you're playing G do
Mm-hmm.
on your saxophone. And then I had a kiddo the other day, and she's a trumpet player, and she goes, all right, I think I figured this out. The instruments all sound on the same note. I'm like, yes, you're playing, there's, but they're called different things. Yes.
Mm.
And so then she asked, are they reading the same notes that we are? I said, yes, but they're reading a G and you're starting on a C. Oh, she goes, well, that makes sense because the instruments are different sizes, and their saxophone is a little bit bigger than my trumpet. And I was like, music education moment of the week. I mean,
Oh,
it was, I
wow.
mean, she made that connection, and she just was asking little questions about that, and it was just really interesting to kind of watch her brain spin, um, and figured out. And trumpet, she goes, so my trumpet valves have holes in them. I'm like, they do have holes in them. And then she's like, so I'm changing the size of my instrument. Ha ha, now you've got it. And so she made those connections.
Love it.
But then the relationship was there to say, for her to kind of talk through that out loud, instead of me, saying, okay, this is transposition and getting into all that. She's like, okay, they're different sizes, we all sound the same. And then she was fascinated that she goes, she started to look at fingers on the saxophone were similar to fingers on the clarinet, and I was like, I mean, it was very, very cool.
So
very, very cool.
That's so cool. Well, it goes back to student-centered learning,
Yes.
and it's so important. And I'm learning about that a lot in my educational technology program right now. I'm getting my master's in. I've already known about it, and that's my teaching philosophy in a way, is I'm very big on student-centered learning, because it's one thing to stand at the front of the classroom and just teach while the kids just sit and watch you write on a board or whatever it might be. But when you get students interacting and coming up with things on their own and figuring it out and having those light bulb moments because you've allowed for that to happen, it is so cool. And I really do feel like that's when kiddos retain what they're learning better too, because they're coming up with the ideas. Like, they're not just being told it to, regurgitating information. So I love that you're allowing those experiences to happen in your room. That's amazing.
Yeah, they so right now the beginning band, I don't know how we got on the subject the other day, but we got on the subject of the Golden Girls. And then so one of the kids, and she was at home, and so started typing, the Golden Girls theme in the chat box. And so we have a goal by the end of school that we are going to play the Thank You for Being a Friend on beginning band instruments, because it has all of the notes for beginning band. It's real.
Yeah. I'm like playing it in my head.
I looked it up and I'm like, oh, there's no accidentals. I mean, this is like, you can play it, in beginning band friendly. Yeah, I was very surprised, like, it fits well in concert B flat. And so they were so excited. This was yesterday. They were so excited. And so they're like, all right, so I'm gonna figure out some notes. And so I kind of gave them the sheet music. And so instead of, them kind of like decoding, I'm like, all right, here's your starting note. Let's play with it. And so they kind of got the first, thank you for being. That's really what they got the other day. So they were so excited. And so I'm interested when I'll see them again on Friday, because of our weird COVID schedule. How many there's probably going to be one or two that went home and have taught themselves the whole thing. So yeah, so I'm really excited to see what they do. And again, this was just us having a conversation about, I don't remember how it came up, but that relationship piece.
Yeah.
It's really more than just about the music in these classes. You want kiddos to feel safe and confident. And and we're entering, I'm in that awkward middle school age right now, and squeaky boy voices, and it's
it's such an awkward age. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to also ask you about music technology.
Yes.
And because I know that it's kind of your jam and you love music technology. So I don't know, what am I trying to ask? Like, what do you like to use? What do you notice works well for elementary music and also secondary music? And any advice you have for elementary music teachers who are probably by now, let's be honest, using all kinds of music technology, but also have questions about it. Like, am I doing things right? Can I do things different? What advice do you have around any of that?
The best tip that I have first is, if you're in Google, like, I love me some Google Chrome. We're a Google county that I teach in, and so your Chrome browser is how you organize your bookmarks. On the top of my bookmark, the stuff that I know that I'm going to use on a regular basis that I want to see, when I add my bookmark, I actually delete all of the text and just leave the icon. This allows, like, I'm looking at the screen right now, I probably have like 20 little icons up there, and that way I can quickly toggle between different things, because I have a very bad habit of having 75 tabs open at one time.
Oh, same. It's a problem.
I mean, so that has been really great. Organizing that, and you can put folders in there, and if you have all of your links for the day, put that folder in your bookmarks and click on that, and all your tabs are going to pop up. Flipgrid has been the most wonderful tool for my distance learning kiddos, and actually kind of wrapped it around my teaching goal for the year. My teaching goal was, students will learn to play said band instrument for the year. But Flipgrid is documenting that progress, which is really cool. So I went back and had the kiddos listen to the first thing they submitted. And so it's been really fun listening to them. Kahoot. I have an advisory period that, like it's kind of like a study hall. My kiddos, they beg for Kahoot every day, so we play Kahoot, and really we get in there and they kind of just will start to open up and chit chat about their lives, and so that has been a lot of fun. Probably my favorite for assessment are boom cards. They make an assessment because I think the kiddos are tired of doing a Google form or filling out a Google Doc. And so boom cards are so great because you can click on them. Like right now for my guitar class, they're working on parts of the guitar and simple C chord and simple G7. So they're going to be able to, for the assessment, they're going to be able to click. And boom cards has a function where they can practice over and over again. It integrates with Google Classroom. It grades itself.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So boom cards are a favorite. I'm like looking at my bookmarks right now. I love a digital escape room. My sixth grade general music, they have general music for 9 weeks straight, and then we call it the wheel. They rotate to like tech ed and art and something else. Agriculture. Yeah, that's the other one. Right now the kiddos, they are doing, and it's Teachers Pay Teachers from the Band Directors Talk Shop. They always have lots of neat stuff on there. Yeah, so they have a digital escape room about jazz.
Cool.
I have never seen a group of sixth graders so entranced. They were 45 minutes in. I'm like, y'all, the buses are getting ready to come. We got to go. So they'll be in school tomorrow. So it's going to be fun because they're about halfway through. And so I put them in digital breakout rooms. And so they're working together as a group to try to, what's the setup? To a password to the jazz club. Because jazz clubs, were hidden and you needed a password to get in. Yeah. So it's kind of a neat premise, and it has them kind of just doing some like purposeful internet searches to find, learning about ragtime and bebop. And one of the kiddos said, I didn't know bebop was a real word. I'm like, bebop is a real word.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that has been really fun doing them, and like creating them is easier, I think, than people realize. This one is all completely in like a Google form. My preferred way to do it is in a Google site. And that way, so like the kiddos, I had to write down their progress because they're going to have to enter back in all that information because they didn't finish. But I like to set it up in a Google site where there's like 5 tabs at the top. And then each tab has a task that you embed a Google form into to get a password or something. And then the last screen will give you you have to put everything in there. That's been really nice. So when I set them up, I tend to like to do it that way instead of just in a Google form. Because if the Google form glitches, then the students like we had one of the questions glitch because I think I accidentally clicked on something looking at something. And so they kind of got stuck. They're like, and like, y'all are putting in the right answer. And so that's later today. I'm going to figure out why task 6 was not working on there. But yeah, the kiddos love those breakouts. And was it Breakout EDU? Every couple months they put out a free one. There was a really fun one like breakout of 2020, my like advisory kiddos did. They really enjoyed that. And some of the kiddos, like they could go in and find hints, but some kiddos were like, we're going to solve this with no hints. So that was lots of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see. I'm trying to look and see what else I have kind of bookmarked up there, but yeah, I think I'm getting into NoteFlight. I have a little NoteFlight subscription for kiddos. Still working through it. It's very different. I'm a Finale user, and so it's set up very differently. So we're exploring how to set that up for kiddos and give them an account. We explored a little bit in a flat this year, which kiddos. Yeah, I attempted with my guitar class to have them do a composition just on the open strings. They were working through tab, and I'm like, all right, here's the quarter note, and I just want you to click on the tab so you can get some open strings. No, that's not what they did. I was like, they found like the 128th note tool and the tempo tool, and I'm like, oh gosh. And because I'm like, y'all are gonna have to play this, and it just turned into, and it reminded me that we're mostly 8th graders. They were in that musical babble stage that when the kiddos at the barred instrument, it was the exact same feeling. They were excited, and they could figure out how to change sounds, and it sounded like the guitar fell off a cliff, and it was really interesting. And I like using what's it, Slides Go and Slides Carnival. If you're looking for templates, they are so great for Google Slides or PowerPoint. And it's nice for like a Google slide. I can click, you can click copy to Google Slides, and they're free. I think cool. Slides Go has now limited. You can get like 10 free ones per month. And like the one I'm looking at here on my computer, it's kind of set up like a browser. And it's been really nice to organize. They've got these notebooks in there that are fun. Like I've done like, here's your digital guitar notebook for your chords and things like that. They're lots of fun. I like using the slides a lot, and they've got seasonal ones, and they're very creative. And they're free. Yeah, that's my favorite flavor of free.
Oh, yes, same. When it comes to technology, how do you choose what to use without overwhelming yourself? And that's a lot of what I hear is teachers telling me, well, I was using something, but then I saw someone else was using something else. So then I tried to use that, but then I got overwhelmed because I was using too many things. So how do you stay focused and do you just choose something and start there, and then you maybe add something else on, or how do you do that?
So like this year I knew I wanted to do Flipgrid. Like I knew I wanted to have that as a way to have like a really authentic assessment with kiddos, because they weren't going to be in the classroom. So I said, Flipgrid is the program I'm going to learn first. That's it. So I just kind of sat down and, I watched. I like YouTube University to find out and learn some different things, because there's so many people who share so many wonderful things. So I really did that with Flipgrid first. And once I felt like, I'm like, okay, I am comfortable on Flipgrid. I've made the mistakes, like I set permissions wrong and kids couldn't find things. I fixed it. So once I felt like it was good, then I added something next. Pear Deck was the next thing that I added, because I think the county that I teach bought a subscription. And so once I felt comfortable with Flipgrid, I'm like, all right, I'm going to add Pear Deck. And so that was really nice. And then I was like, okay, the summer I had bought a Kahoot subscription because friends and I, that's how we were getting together over Zoom playing, trivia, because we couldn't go to our favorite watering holes and play trivia. And so, we're be able to play them on Kahoot. So then what Kahoot is really nice is that they have like certifications that you can do like on your own, and like bronze, silver, and gold, and all these other things. And so they're nice. They were kind of self-paced, an evening when there, I had watched everything on Netflix. I would
Right.
kind of just sit there on my phone and just kind of scroll through some of the Kahoot things, learning about that. Um, yeah, it's like if you're, the kind of that buffet idea. You don't want
Mhm.
to, if you pile everything on your plate, you're going to drop the plate and
Yeah.
you're not going to eat it all, and it all kind of just starts
Right.
to mix together.
Yeah.
But it definitely has to be one at a time. Because yeah, if and so I really kind of keep, kind of bookmark, all right, this is something I'm going to learn later.
That's
Um,
a good.
yeah, and that way I can come back to it. So even if like I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see something that looks like a really neat idea, I just have a list that says save for later.
Mhm.
And that way when I feel like I've got a hang on different technologies, let me come back and learn about something. That was boom cards. Everybody, has, oh, boom cards are great. Boom cards are wonderful. There's a learning curve to get in and using boom cards if you're going to make your own boom cards. Once you get kind of through that learning curve, they're great. Kids have really enjoyed them. There's a very satisfying ding every time you get a right answer,
Mm.
which makes it feel like a game. But I'm getting, some assessment, out of that. Yeah, don't overwhelm yourself, because there's so much stuff out there. Just decide, for me it was, I need to assess my kiddos that are not here. I'm not sure a beginning band kiddo is going to feel confident by themselves in the middle of their living room at home playing for the class, but they might feel more comfortable recording Flipgrid.
Mhm.
Um, and the kids that were really nervous, they put on, there's like a, the little like Lego feature that makes them look like Legos, and they feel like they're kind of anonymous,
Mm.
and submitting. So it's kind of like it's safe. Um, yeah, one thing at a time. One thing at a
Yeah.
time, I think,
Love
is the
that.
biggest tip. Yeah.
That's good advice. When you were talking about Flipgrid, one thing that I thought of was the fact that looking at COVID school year, trying to look at the cup half full, and the way to look at that with Flipgrid is how cool is it that you said kids can go back to the very beginning of the school year
Yeah.
and look at their video submissions and talk about being able to do self-assessment
Yeah.
where, in a regular school year, you may still have video students for them to be able to watch themselves back, but they have all these videos just compiled for them to be able to see their progress. And how cool is that? So
Yeah.
I just think,
Absolutely.
you can find positives even in this school year, even though it's crazy, let's be honest. But
Yeah.
do you have any other advice about anything we talked about today or anything that we haven't talked about today to encourage elementary music teachers listening in?
Um, I think the biggest thing that I always come back to is, I think we need to give ourselves a break just as a teaching profession, that we're doing the best we can for someday. And sometimes the best we can is really just showing up to work
Mm.
and listening to kids. And it might not be the most sparkly music lesson that you ever taught, that, that would impress your level 3 Orff teachers, but you're there for kids trying to navigate school that's different, navigate a pandemic. Um, but then, realizing that you yourself are still, you're still human. I think Brene Brown says, you want to talk to yourself like somebody that you love. um, and then, for moments that I get stressed, that I can kind of pause and, like, you know what, if there was a kiddo in front of me feeling the same way, I would talk to them much nicer than I'm talking to myself.
Mm.
um, and I think it's also easy to be on social media and start reading comments about things. I've stopped reading comments about things. It's just not a burden that I feel like I can do and be present for my students. Um, when the school board announces another change in who's coming to school, I used to read all those comments and I'm like,
Ugh.
this is just not healthy. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to keep myself safe. I'm going to keep my students safe. Um, and I'm going to give them the best that I can that day. And,
Mhm.
some days it's going to be better than the others. And, that's okay. Um, yeah, just be kind to yourselves. I think, this time last year, teachers were superheroes, and now everybody's like, we got to reopen schools. Well, schools have been open. Schools are open.
Yeah.
It looks different. Yeah. Find times with, with some, things that you like to do, whether it's, what's been a nice respite is, find an Airbnb and just get away, even if it's like an hour, and just get out there, get into nature if you can. Just a change of scenery, for me has helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. So good. Give yourself grace. Just
yes.
Don't beat yourself up if things don't go right. I love that you said all that. And you even touched on in this episode about you may have a lesson plan planned out and then you just don't do it. You just go with what your students need and just give yourself grace. I think that's such good advice. So Eric, where can everybody connect with you online?
Different social media outlets. So like on Twitter and Instagram, Hey Mr. Young with Mr. spelled out. I'm on Facebook as well. Hit me up on Facebook. Email elyoung82@gmail. Feel free to reach out and connect. Or if you're ever in Southwestern Virginia, let's get together and we got some great coffee, some local beers here. Come on, we'll have a good time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This conversation was so refreshing, and you just were so generous with offering such good advice, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you.
Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook Group. Come on over and join us there where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.